In this episode of Shipwrecked, we are joined by Guy Norcal and Sam Spratt. Guy Norcal is one of the most legendary collectors in the space, as well as the undisputed biscuit baking champion of the world. Sam Spratt is a prolific artist, known for his Luci series and work on Red Dead Redemption 2, album artwork for Kid Cudi, Logic, All Time Low, and many more musicians and bands you love and adore. We dive deep into Sam's artistic journey, from drawing simple paper bag sketches in art school to creating the wonderful Luci series we know today. Norcal bakes us the best batch of biscuits we've ever had, as well as sharing insights on his own creating and collecting experiences. As always, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Redbeard, Deeze, and guests may own NFTs discussed.
Welcome everybody to episode number 2 of Shipwrecked. We're joined here by the King Deeze and the legendary Sam Spratt. Sam, thank you for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
I love you both.
Thanks for being here, man.
This is very exciting for both of us. We're huge fans of your work, of your body of work, and your body.
Thank you.
There you go. Both.
Thank you.
And I know that, this is, I think that you hold a certain level of, stature in the space, in the community. And for people to really get to hear and know you is exciting. I think that's something that we talked about when you agreed to do it. We were just like, wow, this is going to be special.
Yeah, we can go a little deeper. I'm somebody who hasn't gotten to sit down with you and talk for more than, Twitter spaces really allow for. And It's not as comfy and cozy and private. So it's nice to just sit here. I kind of want to start from the very beginning. Like, what drew you to art? When did you know you were going to be an artist?
So I would doodle a lot as a kid. Like, I would draw in the margins of my notebooks. Kind of my favorite thing, honestly, was just these almost like fractalized spirals I would do to distract myself in class. Like, I wasn't really a good student early on, but I had no aspirations of being an artist whatsoever. It was my senior year of high school. My girlfriend at the time, first girl to ever pay me any attention, any mind, I was, head over heels for this person.
You obviously fell in love with them.
So in love.
Yeah.
And she wanted to become a fashion designer. She had the big dream. She knew where she wanted to head to. And so I followed her along to art school. And then I broke up with her the summer before art school. So I show up to art school and my entire reason for being there was gone.
Right.
But I walk into this drawing class the first day, and it is just the most quintessential art school room. It's this big, high ceiling, kind of dusty light wood. There's these just sprawling, kind of grimy windows, or the sun is kind of dappling, dusty God rays piling through. There's a bunch of chairs circled around, and there's this big plinth in the middle, this big wooden base. And on top of it was, probably a dozen different brown paper bags, different sizes, kind of crumpled in different manners. And drawing teacher has me and the whole class sit down around. We have these little drawing pads, some graphite, and I go, okay, we're drawing what? Paper bags? When you're a kid, it's a sun is a sun, circle with this. I know the tree. I wasn't drawing things in front of me. I wasn't trying to make things realistic. And there was something very strange about drawing the thing that held my peanut butter jelly sandwich, right? It's this is a mundane, non-essential object in life. Why would I pay it any mind? And then we sit down and the teacher starts rattling off little kind of soothsaying bits of wisdom. And he's pay attention to the corners and the forms. Everything is a reflection of the environment around it. Look for where the browns go deepest. Pay attention to the crinkles along it. It's going to make your harshest lines. Don't try to sketch this out linearly. Try to pay attention to the relationship between every shadow, every midtone, and the highlights that would come as the light is hitting it most directly. And it's hard with something like a brown paper bag because it's all the same color. We're drawing in black and white. I had never done this before, but I do it it looks like shit, but it's like the first time in my life I think I had targeted anything with someone being like, look at this differently.
Wow.
And he gave us an assignment. 1 week later, go home, get some paper bags, and draw until you're proud of one and bring it back to class. And that's your first grade I'm going to give you. So that's like week 1 of college, right? There's orientation, there's girls, there's parties, there's all this shit. And I would basically take every opportunity to go back to my dorm, arrange paper bags under lamps, under windows, under anything, just to look at this thing that meant absolutely nothing to me before a guy was like, watch the shadows, look for the reflected light in the room, everything will bounce around and you will find the form through that process. And it wasn't like a linear way of like nailing it initially, like some were a little better than others, but by the end of it I had something I was like, it looks like a paper bag ish. And I went to class, and then he put them all up on the wall. It wasn't like we're handing it in like a paper.
Yeah.
The whole class is critiquing each other. And it wasn't the best in the class, but it was top 5. And that was the first moment in my life I had tried hard at anything, really. And it was like trying hard while looking at the world, not as simple, static objects, but as things that are directly connected to the world around them.
Do you still paint paper bags every once in a while?
No, not really.
You know, get nostalgic for a little paper bag.
I mean, I get nostalgic in the sense that when I'm telling this story, which I haven't really thought about a lot for a long time, it's like, it makes sense, the arc from there. But in that moment, honestly, I just was like, I want to get good at something.
Right.
So before art school, when you were in high school, how did your parents feel when you told them, like, I'm going to just go to art school to follow this girl, and then you broke up with her? Like, did they know about all this?
Yeah.
My parents, if I said I went to art school, they've been like, we've seen your art. It sucks. You're wasting your money. What are you doing? Like, were your parents really supportive and just like, oh, yeah, like...
Yeah, my dad has a philosophy that the whole point of even passing anything along is to allow the freedom and space to make your own mistakes. He calls it like running with scissors. Like, you should do that.
Oh, shit.
Oh my God, we got biscuits.
Boom. What an intro into the biscuits. We're painting bags, now we're painting biscuits.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Sam.
No interruption.
But let me just explain what's happening
There's
here.
multiple types.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's a lot of sausage.
Okay. Woo! So we have a special guest here, and we're gonna get back to Sam's story in a minute, but
We got Guy
we got Guy Norcal,
making biscuits.
who has made biscuits.
Yeah, this is your spot, man.
Come sit. Who has actually baked and made. Are these all biscuits or some scones?
No, they're all biscuits. These are dropped because the recipe didn't. Well, the initial butter I got was with olive oil. It wasn't real butter.
I'm just gonna pick this one
So
up.
they're
so we can
dropped, and then
show.
these are layered.
Look at
They're
Can
makeshift
you get
because
close?
didn't have tools. Had to make do.
Hey, you were looking for the biscuit cutter.
Yeah.
Those don't look biscuit cut. Those look hand cut.
Hand cut.
Am I right?
I use a glass. Yeah.
You killed it.
Is
They
it
look
true
great.
that you are the best biscuit maker in North America? I can't say where you live.
Yeah, of course.
What?
Yeah, you know it. You know it. That's why I'm here.
Right. So on Twitter, Deeze, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but Norcal constantly makes it a thing that he is the best at making biscuits. And who do you go against for? You say they're better than scones. Who do you fight?
Yeah. Like Matt Doog, and then like Ayla and
right?
Jacob.
They like scones.
Yeah,
But they're also all English, right?
right.
Okay. So
I mean, these are like grown-up scones.
Can you? They're for grown-up people. Can you explain to us how your process and your love of biscuit making has started? And is it connected to your love of NFTs?
I guess. Well, so pandemic happens. My mom I'm gonna make biscuits. She made drop biscuits, and my sister made some layered biscuits, and I was like, oh, I'll do some layered biscuits. I like them better. And then, just kept on working on it, changing the recipe here and there, doing this, doing that, and then got to a spot where I love them. And now it's part of the NFT space as well.
Right.
I guess.
What did you do first? Buy an NFT, or start making biscuits?
Probably biscuits.
Oh,
Yeah.
See, so you're an OG biscuit maker.
OG biscuit making,
That's amazing.
What's your Genesis mint on a biscuit?
Yeah.
Man, it's got to be like 2020. I don't
Wow.
know what month, though.
While we're on the topic, what was the first NFT that you bought? Now that you know your biscuits.
I mean, like, besides NBA Top Shots?
Okay, that could count. That's your
Okay.
first one.
Okay.
Right, that's how you got into collecting, right?
Right. So I
Okay.
went from there, then started doing art blocks, flips,
Right.
and then was like, damn, why am I selling these? That's a stupid move. And and then started keeping them and started buying one-on-one work and, developing friendships kept me here.
Nice. So I
What
guess we
was your
should try
first
it.
one-on-one?
Oh.
It's actually it was on OpenSea. It was the Scream, but it was a Pepe.
Hmm.
And it was like a stock market chart, like going to zero.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
Do you still have it?
I still have it.
All right.
Yeah.
Always your first.
Going back to the biscuits, we got to try them while they're hot.
Yeah.
What is the best way to prepare one? We have
Yeah.
honey, we have jam, we
Yeah.
have butter, we have sausage. Like what? If you're, my first impression is going to be how you would make this biscuit. So like,
Started off, I would go with just like try it with butter and then try it with jam,
Okay.
but butter first.
All right. Deeze, you go first. Sam, you're going to have to try one too. So.
I'm in.
is that
Yeah.
too much butter? That looks
No, I mean spread it out a little bit. I would
Good.
usually break it in half first,
I
we got
fucked up.
plates.
Oh my
we got
God,
plates
Deeze,
if
you're
anyone
doing
needs
this
them.
all wrong.
Yeah, I don't eat biscuits, so I already fucked it up.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
cut it in
Look
half.
at Sam's.
But
just
just
gonna
take
one
a
bite
just
it.
just take a bite. You can one bite that.
I'm going to do it.
Good.
All right.
Whose butter's going in your hand?
Butter's getting everywhere. Thank you, sir. This is a very good biscuit. Now I see what you're saying.
Excellent, sir. Thank you.
Oh, good. Welcome.
I got a drink.
I know, yeah.
Taking it one bite was fucking stupid.
Got real
Those
dry,
are fucking
real fast.
thick.
Not enough
and it
butter.
gets caught up in your throat. That biscuit caught me off guard. It's like a lump going down right now. I'm like, man, I probably didn't need to put the full amount in there at once.
Listen,
It's like the anti-podcast.
right.
Yeah.
Holy
perfect.
shit, that's a clog.
Norcal got here early to bake these biscuits. Really not for us, for Sam.
Thank you so much.
Right.
I'm honored.
Yeah. And
Truly.
he slaved in the kitchen. He wore nothing but an apron. He just put clothes on for the podcast.
It's true. It's
Ah,
true.
good.
So
bud.
these are amazing.
I made biscuits while showing my biscuits.
Exactly. It was a biscuit making.
Shortly before you brought out the biscuits, we're going deep with Sam about
Yeah.
his art school first week, getting obsessed with paper bags and drawing them and the relationship between the shadows, the light,
Right.
the form, and just taking a mundane thing and looking at it from a different perspective. So that's kind of just some context for where we were
Which
jumping
makes
off
sense
at.
because we just took a mundane thing and showed how amazing it could be, like the paper bag.
You planned this, didn't you?
I did. Sam, I had the whole thing planned the whole time.
You genius. You Machiavellian man.
It's all the Redbeard.
Yeah.
See, you understand. It's the plan
Totally.
ahead. So
Totally.
after you painted the bags
Yep.
and you sort of had this aha moment, we're going to go from bags to Luci, right? And obviously there's a ton of stuff in the middle that we will
Yeah,
ask
there's a
you
lot-
about.
there's
Yes.
a lot in the middle,
But
yeah.
what was like sort of that right after paper bags? But what was that all that like sort of next step when you realized that you do love art and you want to do it? What was that sort of like next feeling of okay, like what am I going to do next with this?
Yeah. Honestly, like it started purely technical. It was just having, I think like people go a little insane if they don't have something to like target all of their energy at to learn more about or improve at. And so for me, that was just the first thing that ever like put purpose, and subsequently a little bit of sanity started to
Right.
return and bubble up in the process as I was able to make things look like they actually looked, understand after paper bags, getting into color, getting into paint, learning digital art. how to try to translate what I was learning from Peter Paul Rubens and Jan van Eyck, studying their kind of like old master technique. And okay, what if I bring that over into computer now? Like these pens now are crazy. They can pick up pressure and angle. What if I like tweak all these settings, kind of get into the code a little bit and try to make these brushes feel tactile, tangible? Because, you know, the digital art I kind of grew up looking at all felt very like sterile. It felt very like robotic, which is like cool. It's like from the future. But for me, I think I've just always had a deep love of things that show time.
Right.
Like in all senses of it, right? Like where you've put time into creating it, it shows a period of time, like what people were thinking in that moment. And the hyper digital smooth airbrush feel, I was like, there's got to be some way we can like bridge this. Like we can make something that feels in between these things. And I think that's where all of the arc that then applied itself and kind of funded my life through commercial art, working on album covers and movie posters, working on games. That's where I learned how to improve the technical, but it really wasn't until Luci where I started to make a world of my own. Yeah. Everything else was kind of playing in other people's playgrounds.
When was the earliest? I think I showed you. When I was in California once, I went to some random attic that my uncle took me up in like the mountains in California. They were doing like some kind of like sale of some old person, and I found this original Bugs Bunny that isn't look like Bugs Bunny, but it is Bugs Bunny from like one of the first cartoons, and it really fascinated to me like how there's like a history of, you know, actually Mickey Mouse and all sort of these. So I'm curious what your earliest rendition of Luci was, like, even if it didn't even look like Luci or was sort of like Luci.
So in 2020, I did Kid Cudi's last album cover, Man on the Moon 3, and we did that in like 4 days, and it was this really crazy process. Usually I'd have like a month to work on an album cover, but it was my first time working with him. I had been a fan for a while, and I was like, well, I've done a lot of these. I wonder if I can get that out of my system in 4 days. And we were just kind of talking for 4 days straight. Like we would just send each other voice notes. I would pass him early sketches. He'd be like, he's got more trippy, more psychedelic. You know, that was his big note. And once we got it out there, I was playing with these kind of purples and oranges that I had never really played with. And at the same time, running in the background, I was kind of getting sick of doing album covers, right? But I was like honored to be included in a great artist's world and work. And so I had been trying to craft an early version of this story. And I had this experience with my wife, Rachel, now where like she kind of began to untether this very like boxed in, hide in a cave artist that's like always...
Get out of the paper bag.
Get out of the paper bag. Get out of the technical, right? Get a little bit more goopy. Let yourself slide into other people, into your own body and mind. Try to like connect to your environment a little more. I made a painting with a very similar color palette called Slip Space, and that was the first thing where I kind of depicted this male figure in kind of an ape-like form of just that feeling of having someone kind of like set you free from. I don't know if y'all have ever like had a period in your life where you kind of like got into like a goblin like dissociative place.
Goblin mode.
Yeah.
You know, total goblin mode. Where
we've all been there.
Yeah. Where it's just anything to get the day over with and through. The rituals and patterns to make that become monotonous but like survivable. And Slip Space was like the first time I think I made a piece of art where I was trying to capture, I want out of this place. I want out of this mindset. I don't want to just continue doing it, even if it's paying the bills, even if it's funding my life. This whole narrative about being an artist is like, we're the free people. We're the ones that are like living our dreams and doing our own thing, which is like, yes, asterisk, right? It's like, yes, but saying nothing of my own life and story, having nothing to like contribute to it, just kind of like hiding behind other people's worlds.
More trippy, more psychedelic.
More trippy, more psychedelic, right? It's like, you know, you can be proud of it, you can learn from it, but it's not you. And I don't think you can be like an artist unless you are letting people into your universe.
So just keep going with that, because I think it's fascinating. So you create Luci. I mean, it's obviously a play on somewhat of an evolution and freedom, and
Sure.
And you talk a lot about time,
Yeah.
and your process of the chapters and what you're bringing in the future. You know, we're just curious to hear, like, you know, what all that encompasses. Like, what does that mean, sort of, like, you know, in the process of this and where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, because I had this big long stretch of time where I was making art, but I wasn't really thinking about why I was making art, there's a lot of lessons that maybe I could have learned earlier that just hit me later. I just see it as like there's just stuff we miss in life, and better to like at least hit it at some point where you're not, I don't know, staying in like total arrested development. And it's a little bit embarrassing, especially like as you're into your late 20s and early 30s, to like hit things that like probably were on the table to be learned as a teenager, right? But like some of those were, okay, why don't I go and read all the books that I always had the cliff notes for in high school and college? Why don't I start seeing the greatest and grandest philosophies that everyone has ever tapped into?
Why not pay attention at school?
Why don't I look at everything that is already around me, that people have already solved, the story's already written? And the moment you start doing that, you see that there's kind of like one story, and it's just everyone is passing it along. And they kind of nailed it. Most things asked and answered thousands and thousands of years ago. But it's like not a bad thing to keep it going, because I think we go through these cultural cycles where what happened to me of like missing life for a period, it happens to a lot of people. And so anything you can do to like give a little piece of art, a little piece of writing to like awaken that real fire inside you, that thing that is a little bit Promethean or primordial, is the most important thing. Like if art can do anything, it's that. Show you that you can do something,
right?
If you focus in on it,
and people could relate to that. I mean, like, you know, I related to Luci for that reason, and the skulls, like, kind of having those shared experiences.
Yes. When you say there's one story, what story do you mean?
It's the hero's journey.
Yeah,
right?
I wanted to say it, but I won't put the word in your mouth. That's what it has to be.
Because it's like it's embarrassing, because it's like we have thousands of years of it, and then to like discover that like you're writing the thing that's already written. At first you're like, oh fuck, I don't have an original idea,
right?
But then you realize
it's liberating.
That's not the point,
right?
That's not the point at all. It's so why is Luci episodic? Why do I chart this out chronologically? Is like, this is the arc of finding my way out. Yeah, every painting is this like marker of progress. They kind of hold these emotions that I like now look back at each one, remember exactly what I was feeling of like the very first one, Birth of Luci, where I like feel like I woke up in my early 30s and I'm like engaging in the world naked for the very first time, taking my first steps. It's like embarrassing and funny now. It's like such an over earnest thought, but I like that I have them. So it's like every Luci painting is simultaneously a really true, really heavy, really emotional extraction from me, and it's kind of a joke. It's like it's to laugh at like finding this out later, to feel these things now, but thank God I feel them at all.
Yeah. I mean, you posted a picture of you, I guess, yelling into the void. I don't know if everybody's seen it. We'll have to put that one up.
Yeah.
And then that was, you used that for one of your chapters.
Yeah.
And that resonated a lot with me. Like when I tweeted the other week, I was like, oh, I just had to let it out. There's something to that, like, you know, just us exercising sort of these feelings that we have inside that we bottle up, but
sure,
we once we bottle them up, we make them our like stories out of them as if they're real, when it's not really who we are. And And I think that that picture always resonated with me, and I just thought that was an interesting story.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's like a big part of what Luci is like, it's these markers of progress, but even more so, it's kind of like our narrative of progress we're writing for ourselves, and like being aware that when you know you want to get out of a place and you've got to get moving, you want to believe that the thing that you're saying to yourself, the actions that you're doing, are like truly moving up.
Moving up.
Is it always that way? No,
sometimes sideways.
We have our mistakes, our bad patterns tend to rhyme with each other. We kind of loop back to certain things. We make the same mistakes. But when I have these kind of markers of them, I at least can always look at them, and they're kind of this mirror back to me of, if you feel that thing again to this level, that's embarrassing. Like, that's you shouldn't. You should be able to like learn from that process. And so me screaming in the muck that was born from a real memory, walking through Ithaca with my good friend Joey L, this amazing photographer. Him and I are kind of like blood brothers, and it was like lowest moment of my life, like 4 years ago almost, where just a series of kind of catalytic events, relationships ending, deaths, discovering things about myself, dissatisfaction with the kind of work I was creating, all collided all at once. And I was just kind of a mess. Like, I was an absolute wreck, and I had no idea what to even do with this kind of like filth and muck that I was like looking and sitting in myself at. Joey was he was like my first little guide or shaman or whatever, and he went out into the woods and went to this waterfall and just had this very cheesy, over earnest thing where he's like, just fucking let it out, man. Like, just absolutely extract this thing from you. You're walking around with demons that you do not need to hold on to. And it was cathartic. Like, it doesn't solve it releasing it, but even just, I was so removed from it that even acknowledging that, oh God, I'm like filled with rage. Like, I'm a polite Jewish boy, right? But I'm filled with rage, and I never acknowledged it whatsoever. Doing that, everything that opened from there is staggering.
And I'm glad you did it, because I'll share it on the screen, but I made birthday T-shirts for Sam with him yelling, and it was obviously he loved them and not embarrassed at all.
I love you for embarrassing me, because
and we gave them out to everybody at the birthday.
Yeah, that's Redbeard's thing.
Yeah,
it's a big part of life, is to feel it very seriously and deeply, and then to laugh at it.
Yeah.
So,
but I think it's interesting you talk about
provide that.
No, I mean it was a good moment, but it's interesting you talk about those cycles, because I think that also think about Luci for me, and talk about these cycles and these mistakes, and Norcal, also we've talked about this, like in the NFT and crypto space, it's exactly like that. We have these cycles where things go down, we don't sell enough, we get upset at everybody else, everybody blames everybody else. Meanwhile, if you sort of like step back and look at the market, or really what we're building in the blockchain space, it's sort of like this, pointillism, right? It's like you look up close, it looks like shit. But like when you look back in the 12, how many years already? It's almost, 13 years that the blockchain's been around. It's sort of amazing what's being built, and now that we're getting to the art space and sort of like showing that there's real sort of integrity to the blockchain, but with the art, I think it's kind of interesting. And we kind of have to remind ourselves that, as bad as it gets, these cycles is where we learn from our mistakes in a lot of ways, Yeah.
The thing that was most appealing about it to me was really, while I was learning all of these stories, I saw that story in the blockchain. I saw this idea of spending energy to preserve something.
Right.
And it's a simple concept, but it's echoing the hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
It's bothering to write the books, it's bothering to make the art, it's bothering to have some tiny little symbol and fragment of moments in time. And like, I don't know, it felt like this beautiful, natural, almost like godlike extension of us out into our next iteration.
And I guess I have to ask, because early on, I know that you actually didn't really put anything out till 2021, right?
Yeah.
Right. But you were very much in the background following, and I know you were very close with, and you still are close with Fiwo and when he was starting. And I think it's kind of fascinating. You talk about how like you wanted to wait for your sort of till it felt right when you did it, but you were following his journey with him, right?
Yeah, basically, right after I made Slip Space, I felt so good about having a little bit of a release, and I also had these other projects, these clients that were kind of draining while I was feeling this like real new thing, and so I started trying to pull that thread and create this world. Like Luci didn't exist in Slip Space. Luci formed from that. It was like, those early sketches of Bart Simpson, right? It's like not it yet, but you see where he was going.
Right. Or like, what's the early Da Vinci, the early Mona Lisa?
Sure.
What's it called? The Salmons? I don't remember, but yes, similar idea.
There's our art history class.
Right. Yeah.
Is the idea of just building a world and seeing this area where, when I met Victor, online at least, I was looking at an early painting he did probably in 2020, and it was a digital painting, but it was treated in a way that I had spent my last 10 years kind of helping develop this, like, how do you make digital feel tactile, traditional? And I saw some of that in it, and I was like, this is awesome, but this wasn't for a client. This wasn't someone else's world. This was someone's heart, soul, like bleeding out of it. And then I see individuals are collecting his work. I'm not working with like major labels or advertising firms, my agent or anything like that. This was something that had all of these layers of like middle management removed, and it was like boom, boom, person. There was something really profound about seeing something like familiar that I felt in myself in his work. And I reached out and just congratulated him and said, I love this. I'm looking at it, and I look at these eyes, and they feel like you meant it. And I looked at a lot of other art in NFTs at the same time. Like, he was the only one that I felt he's screaming out right now. And when I reached out, it turns out we'd known each other for a long time, just not in the way I knew, is that he got into digital art from studying my old tutorials and from looking at my album covers. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And we sit there and we're talking, and it's this incredible fucking moment of like ego death, kind of like this teenager who I am learning from. He is actively, every word that's slipping out of his mouth is like removing me from that blockage that had been like ramping up, that I was already trying to get out of. And he was like, yeah, dude, you got it.
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah.
Go for it.
We were talking to DeFace before this, and DeFace was telling us how he didn't want to do the Bowie drop, and then Fiwo was like, no, you're doing you just do the Bowie drop, And
Fiwo was like, you're scared, just do it.
Just do it, And I think it's so fascinating, and that someone like Fiwo, who's so young, we were saying this before, he's just so, and DeFace also, is very similar. Yeah, so wise above their age of like more than like that fear that they don't have to like test the waters. It's just
I feel a lot like Sam, where he said, he didn't really discover till his late 20s, maybe what the fuck he should be doing. And I'm in my late 20s right now, and I don't really think I knew what the fuck. I know I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but like I was lost, and it wasn't until the last 3, 4, 5 years that I felt like, okay, I'm doing something that isn't like a complete waste of my time, that doesn't make me want to just scream into a pillow and just end it all.
Yeah. What unleashed that for you? Like, what broke?
For me, it was the pandemic. Like it was like a great reset in a way where I was doing shitty IT job for the government. It was fine. When I say shitty, I got to work 2 to 3 hours a day, and I got to spend the rest of the time on Twitter and Discord doing crypto stuff. So I started this job in 2017. Then 3 months to starting the job, I bought my first Ethereum and Litecoin. Then 2018, start of it, thought I was going to quit my job and like buy a house, and it was going to be great. And then like within 3 months, that was not going to happen at all. And then by the end of 2018, I lost all the money I had put in, plus all the money I had made. Yeah. And it was like, wow, that's humbling. That's like, I went from, I'm going to quit this job and buy a house and retire. Like in my head, like if this keeps up, like I couldn't have sold it and had that. But like watching a few $1,000s turn into a monumental amount is just like, wow. Yeah. And then you lose it all.
It's
and
a lot
like,
of pressure.
Yeah, you lose it all and you're like, fuck, like I'm an idiot. Like I didn't sell any of it. I just kept, you look back on it and you're like, all right, I sold some shit coin that I lost 50% on. And then I bought another shit coin with 100% of what I got from that sell. And then that shit coin went down 50%. And then I did that 10 times. And then
your math was like, oh no, I'm obviously up because I'm up from the last trade. And then you don't look back.
And the next thing you know, like Bitcoin, you don't think it's going to go under $6,000. Right. It does. Right. You're leveraged on BitMEX. You're on your phone at work, on a VPN in the bathroom, leverage trading. And you're just like, where's it going wrong? Like how could this be a negative ED decision? Like I'm sitting here on the job, on my phone, on a VPN, on BitMEX, betting with my last bit of Bitcoin as collateral that Bitcoin is going to go up when it's been going down for 9 straight months and I haven't noticed the trend change. Like just absolutely stupid stuff. So then I gave myself, kind of like you did, a little eye-opening experience. But my eye-opening experience was like some personal finance shit. I started taking like the free CFA courses online. Just like I knew I wasn't going to be a CFA, but I'm like, oh, the content's out here and like these people might know what they're doing and this seems better than what I was doing. So I just gave myself like base personal finance courses. Then I went down like a rabbit hole of podcasts. This guy Patrick O'Shaughnessy and his dad Jim O'Shaughnessy, they have a whole bunch of podcasts, but one's called Invest Like the Best, and he just brings on a bunch of CEOs, startup founders, like high level operators all across like tech, like biomedicine, whatever. And listening to all these smart people talk kind of rewired my brain about like how to think of the world and how to think about where I'm spending my time. Because I'm looking at my job and it's this very linear output, and I know I could map out my next 30 years and see like what I'm going to be. I could look at my coworker who's 60 and be like, this could be me in 35 years.
Yeah.
Right. And it just made me want to kill myself. Like, okay, I just jump out the window now. Like if this is 30 years of this, it's over. It is over. So then I started realizing like, okay, there's risk management. I can have risk capital. Start dollar cost averaging back into crypto. Pandemic happens. Now I'm working from home. Instead of waking up at 6 a.m. to commute, I'm waking up at 7:55 to pop on my work VPN at 8. And I'm clocking out right at 5, cutting off that VPN. All the while going into crypto shit, keeping up with the space. Uniswap summer is when things really, really changed for me. I turned like 2 ETH into 100 ETH over the course of like 3 months. And
it's not bad.
That was just like, wow, we have some money to play with. Like, and I learned all this risk management shit. So I was really like, okay, I need to save this.
So what you're saying is from the cycles, you learned your lesson.
Well, yes, but I was then like scared to buy punks and stuff. So my friend from Uniswap, like the Uniswap summer, I had a Telegram chat of like 50 to 60 people. And in that chat was a good mix of like people on Twitter like Gainsey, but then a bunch of like low-level grinders who were just looking at Uniswap new listings, looking at the code, and then like, you know, oh, I just put 0.2 ETH into this, or like I put 0.1 ETH into this, and there's a bunch of us just fucking gambling on garbage, and like 80% of shit was rugs. Yeah. But then like some things, like there was like a token called XAMP, there's a token called Tendy.
Tendy.
Tendies. Yeah. The original Tendies
yeah.
token. It was deflationary. It was revolutionary. It was going to change the world.
Yeah.
But like these tokens went from like 5 cents, 10
cents
to like $1 in a week. And you're just like, whoa. And then like a lot of times I was selling shit too quick. On a double, I was taking half out. I was like, fuck this. Like I learned my lesson. Fit doubles, initials out. And like it still worked out. But like at the time, like, greedy people excelled because they were just, like, hitting a 20x, like, once a week. And it was just, like, I watched people turn $1,000 into $1 million over the course of 3 months. And I'm just sitting there like, I fucked up. And I did well. And I'm like, I fucked up.
Yeah.
But it gave me this base to get into NFTs with. And my first NFT was a punk. And it was $1,200. It was a few ETH. Trill was trying to get me to buy a zombie. They were under 30 ETH. Snowfro was selling them the fund art blocks.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Like, Snowfro claimed 20 plus zombie punks. And he was selling like 5 or 7 or something to fund art blocks. And Trill paid like 15 grand, 12 grand for his zombie punk. And he was trying to get me to buy one. And I'm like, dude, my net worth is this ETH. And at the time, I didn't quite have 100. I like built up to that by the end of the December time. Yeah. But like at the time, it was like, okay, if I buy this, it breaks every risk management role I've learned. So I bought a floor, flipped the floor, made $400, and was like, whoa. This is better than Uniswap. This is like I'm playing RuneScape, which is something I did. I was talking earlier. I have like 300 plus days of game time in old school RuneScape from 2014 to like 2018, 2019. So it's basically like 1/4 or 1/5 of my time was spent logged into that game for years. And all I did in that game was like kill bosses and trade items. And when I traded the items I traded were these high value liquid items that only wealthy people in the game bought. They're called third age pickaxes. And I would take, 5% on the downside, 5% on the upside and pocket it. And I try to market make this really rare item. So when I got the punks, I'm like, this is the same as the fucking items in this game. Only wealthy people on Ethereum are going to give a fuck about them. They're going to be a liquid, but they're going to be people who want to sell them in a time of crisis for instant liquidity and there's no bid. And there's going to be people in times of like euphoria and exuberance who want to buy them the flex that they made a bunch off that euphoria and exuberance. And then I can pocket the premium on that person because they're not going to care if they pay an extra 20% to get the one they want. So then I came into punks with that mindset and I just kind of ignored my job. Like, I did everything I had to do. I was still a good employee, but, like, I wasn't proactively thinking about the job at that point. I was now in Punk's Discord 12-plus hours a day talking to, like, people, Snowfro, Dave, Cry, Trill, a bunch of the early people who got in art blocks. Yeah. Because Snowfro. Like, Snowfro was a mod in the Punk's Discord, and he would answer your dumb questions. Like, you go in there and be like, "What? Who the fuck cares about Punk?" And, like, people sometimes be cocky, but Snowfro was always like the nicest guy. He'd be like, the art's awesome. Like, look at my zombie. Like, look at my ape. This is awesome. Yeah. And it's like
he is really a special person.
Best.
Yeah. And what he did with the art blocks to me, out of all the digital art, and I've said like I really do believe we're in like a digital art renaissance. I think the thing that's going to probably first be the bridge that we talk about all the time is going to be like generative art, like which has been around for a while, but Snowfro's really found a way to sort of like bring it to the forefront where it doesn't feel like it's being manipulated. It's very artful. It's very thoughtful. He cares very much about curation. He cares very little about price. I mean, he talks about that a lot. Money. No. And not because he even made. It's really because he doesn't. He knows that in order for art to sort of, or this art renaissance to really, get further, we can't focus on the floor. We have to focus on sort of the prospect of art or how it's made. So I really, Snowfro to me is, legend in that sense.
Yeah, he's probably like the person who's had the most. Him and Trill are probably the two people who had the like highest impact on like me getting to where I am today. And it was just Snowfro did it in a more indirect way, like just being a good person in the Punk's Discord, and then Trill did it in a more of like we're in the trenches. He's telling me like oh, this art piece is good. Like this ringer shit. Like this guy knows what he's doing. Like make sure you mint more than one of these. Like that type of advice. I still got. And then I mint 5 and sell 4 of them for like under 2 ETH because I'm like, oh, I would profit at ETH, baby. Let's take.
But
this
you can't
money.
ever look back and be upset. So, Guy Norcal.
Yeah, we gotta get you on the mic.
Yeah, you're an artist. Nobody really knows this, and you did a drop, and you're a fantastic artist and a photographer. I know that.
Talking about the biscuits?
The biscuits, exactly right. Besides being an artist of biscuits,
You do.
which I'm gonna have another one right now. Tell us a little bit about your background and I know you like to keep things quiet, but you really are an excellent artist. I've seen your work and it's very impressive.
School was not like my favorite thing.
Right.
I wanted to, I screwed around my first year at like the small university, and my parents were like, "We're not paying for your schooling. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Damn, community college is awesome." So that's what I did. I did a lot of community college, and part of that was like 2.5 years of art school, trying to become a product designer, trying to be good enough to get into the Pasadena Art Center. And trying to do that, you're sitting next to these guys that have been drawing for longer than you have, and you're like, damn, these guys are good. I don't have a chance. And I was like, fuck. All right, well, what else could I do? And I was like, I like cars. So I did like auto body work and upholstery work for a couple years. And then I was like, I don't want to do this for my life. I want to do this as a hobby. And then just got a business degree after that. It's like, fuck it. And then, never went back to art. Just shelved it for a while. And then, my wife and I have a business for her, and we got that running. And I've been dabbling in crypto, and my wife has been telling me to stop wasting our money. And, I was hiding bank statements, so she didn't see that there was a Coinbase purchase.
I remember those days. I remember my wife's like, especially in Coinbase back in the day, when it first opened up, it had like a million daily. So like there was no there's no like 10,000 whatever now it is. So I remember I would be trading from my bank account, like I'd be buying 75 Bitcoin and then like selling it like an hour later because I made like a 5% profit.
Right.
It's not even like a 2% profit. And I remember my wife finally got the bank statements and she's like, the fuck is this? Like, what is going on over here? So I do remember those days.
Yeah. And then, crypto, right before, Mt. Gox happened.
Yeah.
And I like knew better than to even try and do anything there.
Yeah.
But that's why I was on Coinbase. And then I was like, $1,200 for a Bitcoin.
Right.
We're going, this is hyper Bitcoinization's happening right now.
This is it.
This is it.
Moon.
Everybody get in. And then, Mt. Gox happened.
Yeah.
We crashed down and I'm like, fuck. I'm still buying though, because I believe in this shit long term. And that's when, you're hiding everything from your wife. And then, we go through a couple cycles, have good times, bad times. At this point, I've only been dollar cost averaging because I was a shitty trader.
Right.
And now I'm, I guess, trying to do some photography again.
Well, you also did a drop where you did an artist drawing.
Yeah, so that was some old work of mine.
Yeah.
Some typography work.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, no one else I've not seen typography work out there. I was like, and I like mine, I'll just release it.
So you're a collector that I think everybody agrees is obviously we all collect to make money. Spoiler alert. Just letting everybody know that. Yeah, wow. But with that said, not all pieces, obviously. Not all pieces. But right, a lot we lose money on. But I do think that there's something to say that as a collector, you show us a ton of support for the community. So by building up artists and giving them opportunities, and I know that sometimes you're probably buying stuff, from people that you're like, well, this might not make me any money in the future.
Right.
But you're sort of like, leveraging your bets, I guess, on a lot of artists. And
yes.
And I think that's sort of your concept, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, as far as the NFT space, I usually do not spend more than 5 ETH.
Right.
Like I'm like, you're over 5 ETH, you're not for me.
Right.
I'm more willing to use my my background, I guess, from taking those art classes and be like, all right, I like this style. Maybe I'll just, invest on these artists for me. But, everyone's got their...
I mean, that's the way truly I started buying art, was buying from a lot of artists. Like I bought Dave Krugman's first piece he ever minted, and Monaris and a lot of photography stuff. I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I bought the first skull secondary from Sam's collection.
True.
I spoke to Sam on the phone. We were starting to get to know each other, and I said to him, I'm going to put down... They didn't have full... you couldn't put offers on everything at one time.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I literally put a bid on every single one for 6.9.
Oh, okay.
And I remember Sam's like, no one's ever... Like, not that he thought no one was interested, even in the skulls. I was like, no, I think I'm going to get one here. And you were in Miami at the time, and you called me up. You're like, yo, someone just bought a skull. I was like, and I bought it. It was like 6.9 Ether. And I was like, I remember that was...
Hell yeah. I mean, the skulls were this thing that I had released connected to my Genesis drop.
Right.
So my first 3 pieces on Super Rare, every single person on the bid history, on the ledger, I looked at and compiled, and then I said, I'm going to make an individual skull of Luci for each one of you. And so I spent the next several months creating them all, and then worked with a brilliant protocol engineer to make our own custom contract and a little claim portal, and sent this little invite to everyone. And so that's like, the first auctions I had Fiwo, it had Parrot, it had Yan, it had Otherworld. I mean, the list was like all the people, all these like characters that I had been like lurking in the background, not being part of the space. They were all there in the bid history. And so when I made this thing, I suddenly started seeing this chart form of I made a tiny little club. And it was really just born of like, hey, I'm kind of taking a weird gamble here. Like, I'm turning down all my client projects because I weirdly believe in these monkeys. and I'm just going to take this leap. And if anyone is actually here, the way I see bid history is like, it's energy that stacks and multiplies in each other. So if someone's going to like give me some of their energy to help my momentum, this is my gratitude for like loosening my own stuckedness and taking that leap. And then I put it out there. You were the first. I kind of thought everyone would hold on to them. Maybe some would cherish them. Some would sell them. Some would forget about them. Right? I'm sure you all have a lot of stuff you've forgotten. Right? I had no idea, because for me it was simply centered around gratitude.
Right.
It was purely a gratitude move. When you bought one, something fascinating started to happen, where you suddenly made this energy that I had tried to return to the source of like, I'll make art as thank you to the people who believed in me. And now you have given that person something. And then a few more started to sell after that for 10 ETH.
Right.
And so you have the lowest sale, and they've gone up from there. And
6.9.
Listen.
Yeah.
And it's on chain, so it's there.
There you go. And some of those stories are amazing. Like, there's this young artist, Anthony, like, he was going through a really fucking hard time, and he wanted to produce some new work, but didn't, have exactly all the funds needed. He sold his, got 10 ETH, and now, like, he's started sculpting for the first time, right? There's one guy, like,
That's
the bear
amazing.
hit him really fucking hard. He had some family shit. 12 ETH, like, went a long way. That was my first time ever seeing, oh, art doesn't just have to go back to me as a source. Actually, the most beautiful part of it is the whole thing, the things you guys already know, because you understand these systems that I always thought I didn't need to, or that were not artful, were not soulful, are actually, if you treat them with, some degree of honor, it's like it's not extraction, it's permaculture. Like you are planting literal seeds that through these like intangibles like art and feelings and soul and monkeys that something can provide that to then grow to someone else and someone else and someone else. From there, it all just kind of went into God mode, right? It's like I suddenly started realizing that the greatest gift of getting to do this wasn't just extracting some art in me that I had never tapped into. It was also connecting to people who were their own artists. They were their own masters, protocol engineers, people with deep understanding of finance and markets, and generative artists, like all of these people that touch parts of my brain that I didn't, and just recognizing that, the big trap, I think, that everything we were talking about before of this dissociative life where you kind of like stay atomized and alone is like you are limiting all of those touch points to inspire you to start creating more interesting worlds and help each other.
Yeah, and so it's funny because you just sold a skull, or someone just bought another skull.
Yeah.
And Brian, no numbers after. And what I love is that he's actually a former student of mine, and we have this like unique connection with NFTs. And then he just bought the skull because I was talking about what I think about them, and he bought one, and it's kind of nice to see that connection in a lot of ways. Also, I own one and Roger doesn't, which makes me really excited.
Agreed.
And true story. So myself, Deeze, Norcal, Ian, and Will, we've all started collecting together recently in a little group, which we're very happy about. Yes. It's like a family. And we bought the super rare pass because we heard there's like a good chance, well, not a good chance, but there's a chance. We may win a piece from you. So we're hoping that super rare is going to cheat for us and give it to us.
I will assume it was all for me and not for all the other amazing artists.
We only bought it just to get it for you. Obviously, to have that like
not for X copy.
I think we tried to not the X copy. I mean, who needs an X copy, right?
We got enough of them.
Right, we got enough X copies.
Yeah, sure.
And we'll put the X copy up on a nice TV next time for Deeze instead of what was up in.
It went viral.
It did. Well, so I took that picture and I sent it to you first, and then I put it in Barry's room, and then somebody else big in Twitter posted it, and that was it. But I don't want to bring that up. I'm in a low key fight with them right now, so at least I'm in a fight with them. I don't know if they're in a fight with me, which is usually the case in my situation. But so the skulls are part of, I guess, the whole story that you're kind of weaving together.
Yeah, I mean the concept for the skulls outside of just like the gratitude component was just, I think the more people I started talking to as I entered the space that had so many different backgrounds, it's like they were all kind of doing the same thing. Like everyone just smelled this like decay of their former life, and like, look, this new world is crazy. I don't fully understand it yet, but I know it's at least more fun and interesting than what I was doing right before. And I just saw this like collective rejection of like watching their own lives decay and trying something fun and weird together. And so the skulls are just these little deaths that we got along the way, every single one of us.
I'm glad I got that one because I ended up getting my favorite one because it looks like Yoda.
Yes.
So I was
and you are certainly the Yoda of the space.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I'm not that old. I feel like, to be fair,
how old is Yoda?
Yoda's 900 years old. You reach.
I knew you'd know.
Yeah. I feel like if there was a Yoda, it would probably be more like Tony Herrera.
Or
right?
Barat.
Or Barat, yeah. But like Tony to me also is like, it's a funny story. We were in Mexico City for Bright Moments, and Tony, I don't know if you ever met him, he's just a phenomenal human being, like great guy. Lived this amazing life, doing amazing things, and now is in crypto, obviously. And I'm on this boat at 5 a.m. to do that trip. I went into the where I told you I like got they put you in a hot tent thing.
Oh, yeah.
So first they show you the sunrise. So it's me, Joe, who is the CEO of Infinite Objects, Sergito, Bobby Hundreds, Dave, like that are my crew. And there's these two young people, they're not youngish, younger than me, who are in this boat with us. And I'm talking to them for a while. And then I'm like, oh, so what brings you here? Like, oh, my dad's in crypto. And I'm thinking like, okay, how many people could have dads in crypto? It doesn't even make sense, because like the rest of us, like our kids are young, no one has adult kids. And then it's like, is Tony your dad? They're like, yeah. And it was funny because like he is like, yeah. So he's great. But so back to you, Guy, if you don't mind me asking another question.
Let's do it.
You're like super into photography now,
right?
And I your project that you're doing, I think that not everybody has seen. It's very low key.
Yeah.
I keep trying to bid on, but everybody keeps overbidding me, which is really annoying. But I think it's a phenomenal project, and I just would love for you to like talk about it because I think people really need to hear it because it does feed into a lot of what Sam talks about of sort of the shared, messages and feelings that we all have and things like that.
Well, that I don't know. It just so it started off because I wanted my daughter like was acting like she like with toys, like she had a camera, and I wanted to get her a toy camera or a real camera, but like a toy version. And I was just like, I don't know, scrolling and found this. I was thinking of a Fujiroid.
Yeah.
And then I saw that they had a new one that just came out that was digital and you could print. So I was like, oh, sweet. I'll get that for my daughter. And, but as I was like playing with it and stuff, I was like, just sitting there, I was like, this could be a cool project, to like take a picture, you get the physical, you have the digital, and just pass it around and see where it goes in the space around the world.
And who run it first?
We
could cut this out.
Infinity.
Okay.
In Singapore.
Okay.
And then Geeky Bunny.
Right.
And she's also in Singapore.
So they take a picture. And then when they're done, that picture is the next mint. And then the camera gets sent to the next person.
Right.
And it's one picture they have to pick.
Yeah. I'm in one picture. They get 90% of it back. And 10% goes to fund the shipping and in case the camera gets lost.
Wow. That's awesome. I mean, I love photography.
Yeah.
For me, like I've been buying a lot for a long time. I think it's underrated. I am curious to see how it goes and where it goes.
Yeah. I mean,
curious your thoughts on that,
it's, well, I guess here's the weird thing. So, I mean, Twitter, you get fed so like, when I'm on Twitter, I like only see photographers.
Right.
And so from my view, I'm like, damn, there's a lot of photographers. Like, what else am I missing out there?
Well, that's like when Deeze sent us juice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're like, wait, what is this?
Yeah.
Probably because you haven't seen anything that's actually drawn in a while.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I miss a lot of stuff out there because, well, I'm not scrolling Twitter, but also, like, I only get fed, like, photography. Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting thought. I mean, sometimes I'm like, there's too many photographers.
I mean, there could be too many artists in this. I don't know if there's too many artists in the space. But...
Well,
I just there probably aren't enough collectors. Like, there's a lot of artists,
right.
But as collectors, like, there's not that many coming into the space. A lot of us are collectors because this space blessed us with some good periods of time that we were able to capitalize on, and we now are in a position to collect art and really, make a dent and kind of pave the way, which feels crazy. Like, when people say, like, oh, you're a tastemaker, I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, I'm just literally high, like, ripping and dab, and I'm like, oh, I fuck with this. Like, I'm gonna go do some research on this person. Then you listen to them talk for an hour or two, and then you get a kind of sense for, like, where their artistic mind is, and then you're like, I really want this piece. It's
right.
Like, I think, like, there's just not enough collectors. That I love as a collector, having more artists to choose from is a greedy thing to ask for, but like it's great. Like it makes our job harder, but it also gives us more opportunities to find amazing creators. And
it also lets you hone your craft, right? It's like if there weren't a lot of us in many different fields, many different areas, and we weren't all kind of colliding in this one somewhat coherent ecosystem, you know, you are just, okay, I'll get this. I see this. I liked it in that one moment, and you start collecting it. Or maybe you get one layer deeper and you're like, I am actually particularly drawn to photography. There's something a little more authentic about it. But then you start pulling back that layer and you're like, okay, but some of these people are kind of just going to like really obvious locations and kind of all shooting the same thing. And some are really trying to capture something true.
Yes.
Right? And then you get further and you're like, okay, well, what about the ones who are like, they're actually not concerned with reality at all. They're concerned with trying to make an image that is timeless, like a painting, that can like, it will frame fuck the hell out of it. They'll composite certain things. They'll color grade every single component of it to try to sync it and make a moment feel like it's not just done by this thing that we all have in our pockets. I could do that too, but rather something that it is, you can hang it in a museum. And then you go to painting, you go to 3D art, generative art, all these things. And I have to assume like some of the joy for you guys is not just, oh, this is nice, I'm making artists, have an opportunity. Like that probably feels good, but you get to actually get actively better, hone what you like in the process.
For sure. I mean, I've never looked at so much art. I don't know if, like, I guess that's one thing. Like, in this space, we've looked at so much art in such a short amount of time compared to who else
99% of the population.
Who else has done that?
Or like in history.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
I got into art because my lovely wife is I looked, make sure get that camera. She has her master's in art history, and she was always like the one who would take museums. And I just remember at the beginning, it was like sitting there, like, oh my god. We went to a Toulouse-Lautrec exhibit in Washington D.C. And the first hour was great, the second hour was great, the third hour was like, phew. By the sixth hour, what the fuck are we staring at?
Right.
And I didn't, I learned. And we talked a lot about this. My art IQ has grown so tremendously, so quickly, and I've read so many books now on the history, especially contemporary art, which I'm like, really interested in. And I think that it's fascinating because I do think that I don't want to say we're not tastemakers. Like I get it, like because it's hard. I know I feel very similar in the sense like, who am I? I'm a nobody. Why should I decide who's good here in this space or who's a good artist?
Right.
But
We don't decide.
we don't decide.
What we like.
We just buy who people are like, but we are learning more about what really art is, and I think it's a fascinating thing.
Well, that's what curation is, right? It's like there's so many tiers of collectors, right? There's some that hold their thing, like we have a collection of grails, the best of the best. There's some that's like I'm more PFP centric. Some deal purely in psychedelic art or landscape photography, what have you. But each one of these people are it's taste making, but it's also kind of showing the power that all of these institutions that came before are like not all bad, right? It's not like there's this weird mentality in crypto NFTs of like, let's just blow it all up, start a revolution. Everything sucked. It was all terrible. But like they didn't bother to see like, okay, well, yeah, we love super rare and whatever, but it's not like Christie's is this like terrible place or anything. Like it's not like these velvet ropes that are blocking off anything came from nothing. It came from people like you who are slowly over time educating themselves and getting to a state where you can walk through the fucking conference floor of Art Basel and you see all of these things in the same way that you guys will scroll through Twitter and it's like it's all a blur, but you've honed it enough that it's like the same with your DMs, right? You know the script of what someone wants from you. You know the first. It's like, but if you see it enough and you get good enough at it, it's like you've got matrix vision, right? You see through it and you're like, found it, targeted, and it's same thing as like this whole precursor art world that came before you. All of these famous families that have been like the purveyors of art for as long as we've been making it.
I think,
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, shit. I was going to go back to on the honing your craft part as a curator. I think is really important, and it's something that we've all had to do a ton of. I can just give it back to you when I'm
no,
done.
it's fine. Let's go.
That one cable is a little pain. I don't want to see the little honey biscuit roll off. That could be
If
a
it fell on the
very
floor,
cinematic
that would be the
crash.
end.
You could probably slow it down, Mish, if that happened. But when it comes down to like honing your craft and stuff, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. I didn't really know much about photography at all. The only piece of photography I collected, I think, at the time might have been like Justin Aversano's Twin Flames, because he came into the Punks Discord and did the Save Art Space, and I was just like, I'll support this guy, I'll buy this. And that blew up, and I was like, oh, that was lucky. That was like just like Art Blocks, but like Art Blocks was different. It was definitive. It was like, okay, if I mint this, I know there is going to be 1,000 ringers, 1,000 fidenzas, 10,000 squiggles. When you're buying photography, you're like, how many shots is there going to be of El Cap in Yellowstone? Millions, like you said. And then I like started talking to me, the two people who really kind of warped my perception on what to look for in photography were the two landscape photographers, Cath, Simard, and Jay.
Jay's here.
Out there. Shout out Jay. He might be inside. But like they talked a lot about the struggle to get that shot and the story behind getting the shots. And before I heard the story, I didn't really have a proof of work concept of like assessing photography. It was like I got fed the Instagram stream of photography, but I never clicked through the comments and read about why they took the piece, what was special about it. So I just kind of didn't have a heuristic for evaluating it. And after talking to Cath and Jay and listening to their experiences, and Jay talks a lot about like getting to the point where like luck is the main factor in photography, like just getting a shot that isn't reproducible, that is once in a lifetime or very rare, and like that's what you want to put out there.
Did you see the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
I feel like I have, but I don't remember it. It was one of
the
those
movie
movies
was
I
alright,
watched
but
when
there
I
was like
too
one
high.
scene when he's trying to find this photographer, and he finds him. It was played by I don't know what's his name from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Sean Penn, and Sean Penn's the photographer, and he finds him like in the mountains and somewhere in Asia. I don't know where it is, and he's sitting with him and talking, and the photographer's like basically been sitting there forever. And he's like, what are you waiting for? He's like, oh, I'm waiting for the shot. And then as that happens and they're talking about the meaning of life and whatever, a snow leopard passed by, and he looks through the thing, and he says, take a look. This is a shot. He doesn't take the picture. He's like, it's the moment. But it's very interesting because like I felt that same way about Drift. Like when Drift is like climbing these insane spaces, and that's not, it's part of the photography for me is the what goes into it. Dave Krugman with like everything he did with like drip drops and the mechanics behind it. Like when you add that extra layer for photography, I think it does. But I think going back to what you said about curation, I think that really is an important thing that we have to learn. Like to me, I think there's going to be a divergence here in the space, in my opinion, and I think PFPs, which I have no problem with, like I think that there's a place for them in what's going to happen, right? There's a place for them in NBA Top Shot and what Dapper Labs is doing and what will happen with sort of digital assets, and we kind of mix that with a lot of the fine art that was happening in the NFT space, and that was what was lacking was curation, in my opinion. And I think what's going to happen is as PFPs build their IP and brands, they'll go in one direction, and I think we're going to start to see more good collectors and people realize that curation is a really important thing. And going back to what you said, Sam, like I read some really amazing stuff on the Medici family, right? Which I think is great. Like that Cosmo brought it back, and people didn't fully understand that reference. But if people know the history of the Medici family and how really they started the FOMO of art, right? Created the word FOMO, and brought that in. It was really a sense of curation and how they built that, and that whole sort of sense of creating art to fit a collector. So I hope that we do have better curation, because I think it's going to be very important for the space going forward.
I wouldn't even worry about like getting better curation, because that's just the natural process. It takes time.
It'll happen
right?
anyways.
It's not like all of this started and instantly we were like, okay, let's decide who's the best.
Right.
You know, no, there's no big
Right.
round table.
Right.
You know, it's through a little bit of taste making in many different areas, and if there's consistency in the kinds of things that get elevated, that can give an artist some prominence. Who they are attracted to can help them. It takes time for all of those like natural systems to work their way out, and it's like there's this period last year where like everyone was just balling out.
Yeah.
Everyone was having a great time.
Yeah.
So everything stuck, right? It didn't really matter. Is this good? Is this not good?
Right.
Do we like it? Do we not? If there's a good story to tell in that
Sell it.
moment, and it's like great because it provided a lot of people a moment in their life. But I guess at least for me, like I've released 7 paintings in Luci, right? I have a very slow output compared to pretty much everyone else in the whole space. And I'm not going to change
Right.
because a few factors. Takes me a long time to make them because I think time spent on these things is super important. These aren't like creative expressions that I'm like throwing out there. This is a thing I really give a shit about. It's really hard to try to take what's in my mind and give it justice by putting it out onto canvas. And then I think even more than that, I already did 10 years of making money with art. I guess I know what that feels like when you're not connected to it, when you become a little bit of a machine in the process. And it's like a loss of soul a little bit. You know, you lose this thing that is supposedly your defining quality. So taking your time is like, I want to make better work. I don't want to just,
Right.
okay, here's another this thing that you've already seen from me. I want to have a deeper understanding of color, of light, of composition. I want to be able to convey the emotion and story that I can like look at the ones I've already made, even the ones I'm super proud of, and be like, I could do it better. You know, like areas where I mentally cut a corner, or I look at now and it's like maybe it was a little too on the nose, and it's not with like this like punitive self-flogging judgment, right? I'm not like sitting there like, oh, I fucking hate all my art, I'm tortured. No, I'm actually very proud of Luci. I truly am, because I know there's something true in it.
Yeah.
But even within it, a part of that process is looking at it and being like, even the ones that have been elevated and put up at Christie's and sold for these big amounts, it's like I still can do way better.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. I think as us collectors, I think we've spoken about this as a group, like we hope that the artists have more patience. Like, take your time. Like, this idea that a sellout has to happen in 20 minutes, right? It's so frustrating to us as collectors because, like, just, all right, take your time. Like, grow your art. Like, there's no reason to get something out and have to, like, be bound to time. Because I think that, you know, if you take your time, like you're saying, and I try to say this to artists, right? And I know you feel the same way. Like,
Well, there's a lot of young artists out there too.
right.
Like Sam has a lot of experience. He just
Correct.
said
Right.
he did commercial work for 10 years
Yep.
to build the base before he got to really express himself.
Yeah.
And there's
Totally.
people who are stuck in the mud and they're like under 25.
In the muck.
And it's like zoom out.
Stuck in the muck.
And
In the muck.
even more so, like, it's important to acknowledge that, like, making good money from the art I did before let me enter this
Right.
with entirely different motivations. It was I wasn't like, oh, people, $69 million. That's not why I'm here. You
Right.
know? And so I get to focus in that way that
Right.
a lot of people aren't able to. And
Right.
it's like when my very first job out of school, I worked for a tech blog called Gizmodo, and I was their first staff illustrator. And I would do things for them and Kotaku. I made $20 an illustration.
Right.
I would do like a few a day. I saved up $5,000,
Right.
and I moved to New York, and I found 2 Dominican guys off of Craigslist, and I lived near a methadone clinic, and I fucking worked my ass off.
Right. And you worked really hard.
Yeah.
But you also put a lot of time into you were telling us, we could cut this if you don't want me to put it in. You told us, like, you were talking to Kane and I last night about working on Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit
Okay.
about it. Sure.
And you did some art on it, and you were talking about, like, the art being so important to you in just the shades and direction that somebody was facing. And they're saying to Kane how like you put so much effort into that. We were playing the game, like just playing the game, and you were just like these little tiny things that were so important to you as the artist. And I said to Kane, I was like, I never saw that in the game, but it was visually stunning, and I think that's like a fascinating thing as well.
Well, you never saw it because it was done so well that the game was so visually stunning.
Correct.
That you didn't have to consciously perceive it because it was presented in such
and also it was just like it was just fascinating to me to learn about the layers that go into something that we don't see, yet there's so much that effort and layers that go into it before then.
You can go infinitely into literally everything. Right. You were just waxing like deep philosophical on weed resin, right?
Yeah.
Of like the crystallization process and like the light in your eyes that went off as you started to learn about this is like that was me with the paper bags, right? It's like that moment when I first learned about reflected light, you know, when like okay, if a light is bouncing on a colored surface and then it hits onto another object and you're trying to take like, let's say it's like a warm wooden surface and that sunlight hits it and it's taking some of that like warmth, that orange, and bouncing it up onto the thing. And then you start to see all light is like that. Everything everyone's ever designed is fucking magical.
Yeah.
We should be looking very close at all of it. That's why I do any of this, is I am fascinated with detail. I'm fascinated with trying to understand now, because I missed it for so long, how do I capture some bit of the like beautiful spiritual layer that stitches all of this together.
Yeah.
Like we're all hanging out on a podcast. It's like good vibes. Everyone's, you know, we're all here for good
biscuits,
for good reasons. We got
Sausage,
beautiful biscuits and honey and liquid death. And
if we were stranded and shipwrecked, this would be perfect. So
we'd be all set.
Yeah.
But the strands that connected each of us, that brought us all here, are actually like very profound. Like they're not funny. They're not like topical. They are these things that are potentially, if we like nurture them right, are like lifelong relationships, friendships, right? It's like I met you because I knew Fiwo, who introduced me to Ronen, who took me to O'Shinies and Azwire, and then introduced me to you, and we just hit it off. That was it.
I think it was the beards.
Didn't even have it at the time.
Oh no,
I was clean shaven.
That's right.
Yeah, so
you were beautiful.
No
that's
dice.
What it was. Maybe
no
that's
dice.
what it was. Yeah.
That's how little of a true connection.
Right.
I had.
Not even the beards.
Not even the beard.
Not even the beards.
There was some.
So you're saying you grew the beard in solidarity with me?
As I told your wife, it's because I'm a very big fan of you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll take that. You know. No, I think that's all true, and I think the relationships, like, it's funny. Even all four of us here, like that we've built. Like, I've only met. I met you a year ago.
Last Art Basel. We were at a photography dinner.
Everybody kept saying, "Oh, you need to meet Deeze. You need to meet Deeze." I think we were like at the same place, same time a few times. But it's always sat down at a dinner, and then we finally just talked. It was like the first time we really like.
Yeah, I felt like I knew you for like 5 years.
It was like
after one
this makes
dinner,
sense.
it was like, wow, like
Yeah, and then the same thing like when we met you online, and then I think we met you for the first time also in
Denver.
In Denver. Yeah.
Yeah, both of you guys.
Both
yeah,
of us in Denver.
that was a good dinner.
Yeah. So
And I mean, look, so it was 2020, like after I'd done Slip Space, where I started paying attention to the space, I discovered Fiwo, and so then I'm trying to learn the cast of characters, you know? And Deeze is one of the main characters.
Right.
I don't even know how the fuck that happened. I'm only a main character because I was on Twitter talking about NFTs like a year before. Like, oh, now I'm a main character.
Yeah. But you know what? You were, and you know, for me, I'm getting into this thing with skepticism, trying to understand this new system, trying to see who's a huckster, who's real, and like you talk about vibes all the time, right? and like for me, the precursor to vibes is like the school of demonology, right? It's this like, okay, you look at like an old Bruegel or Bosch painting, and there's these like anthropomorphic ghouls and goblins, these like head of a horse and body of a monkey or whatever, and they're, you know, the immediate read when you see all of these old things is like, okay, do people think these were real? Like, did people in position of power trying to convince people that there's like something really scary out there? No, maybe it's like metaphors, symbols for something else. But then kind of like, I don't know if y'all feel this, but like as you get older, you start to see that like demons are real. It's just like they don't look like that. You can like see it in the look of someone's eyes or the way they tweet, right? And so in those cast of characters, you were like the least demonic of anything in the whole thing. And I was like, there's like something pure and good here. Like there are people that are like trying to make something beautiful, trying to like stitch together something real, even among the game, right? Even among the game. And when you have those little touch points where like, I'm now having this parasocial relationship with this main character in my video game. You don't know who the fuck I am. I'm listening to your Lindy Walks or whatever. And
I always noticed you down there, but I'm the type where I would never call people up. Like, I'd always be like, fuck, I wish Sam would request. But then I'd be like...
I was too shy. That's all.
A lot of people just want to, like, listen, and they don't... Like, a lot of artists I know, they just want to create while they listen, and they don't really want to, like, come up and talk.
I keep it in the background.
But I always used to see you in there, and I always just think, like, man, if you request, like, I'm accepting that shit ASAP.
Thanks, man. Honestly, I just wanted to learn. And, like, I'm glad I spent, like, 10 months just lurking and learning, because I think that whole time I was making Luci, and it really started... It was, like, my own curation of what parts of this space do I actually truly want to engage in. And that's why, like, I don't release a lot of work. I haven't done a lot of these, like, weird little side hustles or editions or anything like that. Is, like, I saw what blows up and then immediately collapses in on itself. But that only came from, like, listening into y'all. Like, trying to have some understanding that, like, I didn't understand markets at all. I'm still barely understanding, right? It's like...
We don't either, by
Yeah,
the
we
way.
still don't. So we're trying.
We've been around for a while.
If we understood them, we would have did a little better. Go much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we do pictures.
That's good. Me too.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I was walking, my brother is a doctor, and I was walking through an art museum with him in Ohio, and he like doesn't give a shit about art, right? But he like wanted to show me that like, even Ohio has art.
Do you remember what art museum this was?
The Cleveland Museum of Art.
Okay.
It's like beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Like one of the most well-endowed museums in the country. I had no idea it was there, right? My own ignorance, not following this thing. But I'm walking through, we're going through the antiquities up into like early Christendom, and he's like looking at all of this for the first time because he just came there to kind of like be a good evangelist for Ohio, right? As like,
God bless, we need them.
Yeah.
Us Ohioans,
Yeah.
we need evangelists.
Right?
You just took a big loss in college football also.
Yeah, let's not bring that up.
Yeah. And he's like, it's not all in New York. You
Right.
can, you
Right.
can, You can find
Even
it
in
everywhere.
Ohio.
Yeah.
And he asked me like, why does anyone do any of this? Like, why does any of this art exist? Because I don't know how the hell they even did it back then. And I was like, I think they're just like nice totems, like very tangible objects that show what it is to try something, anything,
Right.
like to get good at something. And you gotta walk around this museum of like people who are masters at it all through history, thousands and thousands of years, trying to just show themselves probably first and foremost, and then the people around them. You can do something if you try.
And to go to a museum
Art's great.
with Sam, just want you to know, is a treat. I went with him and Dave to the museum, and he's staring at a painting, and for a while, and I asked him like, "Oh, what are you looking at?" And he explained to us for like 15 minutes about, all about the painting. I understood about 2% of what he was talking about, but it was amazing, and that's a lot why I love going with my wife as well, because like she has like this deep understanding of that stuff. So, but I think there's also like this understanding of like why it's important to understand art history. And I've tweeted about this a bunch of times, and it's really important. Like I tweeted the other day about people who I guess were riffing that other artists were copying Grant Yun, and I laughed because I was like, Grant Yun is a phenomenal artist, and I posted that thing about Hockney, and people were DMing me like, "Who's Hockney?" And I was just like, wait, like you got to understand, like we're all like this guy Michael wrote an amazing book. Like he said the other day to me, like all art is derivatives, right? Like in some ways, and I think it's a really important thing that we do need to learn as collectors and artists, some artists, to understand how important that is. My
first loves were Peter Paul Rubens, He's who I studied on the technical level the most, like how he would build things up. He would have these like warm washes. They would put a sketch in, block in light and color with chalk or pencil, and then he would start laying in grayscale. But what was different about this grayscale is that because he had that warm undertone, the grayscale was this thing, a black and white spectrum, in contrast to it, relative to the warm undertones. It was cool. It was like blue almost. And he would use it anatomically to define forms, and he would call it the dead color. To show like almost like a corpse of like where the least blood flow is. So he would let the most of the warm undertone of the canvas pop through where like the nose or the ears or your cheeks or your lips, where it's a little bit more flush. And I started to see like, oh, he's not just like drawing what he sees. He's building up these layers with some understanding of the layers under us, right? He's like treating it in an efficient manner, but he's seeing under the surface. And then I would study light from Caravaggio. I'd study like character and composition from like Rockwell and Leyendecker. And those were like my initial kind of loves. You know, very popular artists. It wasn't like I was like deep into the weeds of anything. Later I discovered like James Jean and his flow, the way like his line work would kind of bend around everything. I was really into Craig Mullins for a while because he was this digital painter. He used to do the halo concept art. And he would treat the digital canvas with the skill and mastery of a painter, but it looked simultaneously digital and physical. And then I was like, okay, well, how do I pull the things that I love most about oil painting? How do I acknowledge that like there are pioneers like Craig Mullins who are trying to lead the way, and make my own thing in the process? But like it doesn't just come out of nothing. It begins by both replicating on my own volition of things I've already seen, and sometimes because I did commercial work, it's like I have a lot of work. If you look through my backlog, it's like, oh, this reminds me of that or that or that, and it's like a little embarrassing for me, right?
I found some old work for sure. Yeah,
right. But it's like it's also that was part of my journey, right? It was I didn't initially have something that was concretely mine, and instead of like constantly hiding and being embarrassed by like not being fully you yet, it's like claw your way out of the muck, get your way out of it, see who you are bit by bit by bit by bit. And I think NFTs, Luci was the first time in my whole life, even after 10 years of doing this, a perfectly satisfying, successful even career. This is like I'm starting all over again.
Wow.
And I love it.
Well, we love that you did start over. I think we're running out of time, but we're going to ask a question to each of you. I have a good question. So first of all, I'm a little biased, obviously, because I love everybody here deeply. Sam, we really thank you for coming on. I think the three of us all, as collectors, feel very strongly that you are legend now and will be an even greater legend in the future. And just it means a lot to us. Guy, you know, the biscuits were great. But so because we call this podcast Shipwrecked, we're going to ask you this question. If you were shipwrecked on an island and you could bring only one thing with you, what would it be?
Is it one album?
No, we're going to change it.
Oh.
I want to change it this time.
Okay.
Yeah. Only one item that you could bring. Don't forget about it's a small little island. I don't even know if there's trees on it. That's up to you to decide, but you can bring one thing. We'll start with you, Guy. What would you bring?
Goggles.
Okay. Deeze?
Probably that same Madeon album that was also my favorite
bring your
album. In a way to play it.
Okay. I'll go to Sam so I can go last.
Does this thing include a person?
Anything you want.
Yeah, man. I'm going full cheesy. I'm going my wife.
Okay.
Well, yeah, if I could bring my
I
wife.
thought it was just items.
I thought it was
This is how it's done.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm going to say my wife.
I don't
also.
objectify my wife, so I didn't think she was an item. I was like, oh, surely I can't bring my wife.
I think if I couldn't bring my wife or my kids, it's funny. Most of the time, I get when I ask this question, people say a door because they want to escape, which is it's what I find fascinating because like all they want to do is get out, sort of thing. For me, I think it would be like a chair, a comfortable chair.
All right, I want to re-ask the question, but
Yeah.
with album, because you have to have the constraint.
Okay, fair enough.
Because if you say item, it's like, what the fuck? Like, what?
Yeah.
I'm
By the way,
bringing
we recently
a
found
gun?
out that Sam and I say that we have very good friendship. He did let me know last night that there was part of him that at some point he may want to kill me. So I decided that if he's going to kill...
I didn't say this. You said
Oh, I
this.
said that. Right. I don't remember. I did decide that if he was going to kill me, the way I want him to kill me is by eating me.
Oh,
Yeah.
That'd be an honor.
Devour, right? It would
yeah,
be- see?
absorb my nutrients.
Deeze totally gets it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I'd rather you than the myself.
Sam's like, I don't understand it, but you get it.
The fun guy's
Sir,
gonna take it
thank you
anyway.
very much.
I mean, or you
Yeah.
get cremated, then no one gets it.
No, then that's just
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
boring.
know why I'm a cannibal, but I'll take it.
Okay, you'll take it. Well, did you ever see your screaming picture? I mean,
Okay.
you look like it.
All right.
All right, ask the question now.
All right.
Okay.
You have one album to bring on the island. What's the album?
This is going to be a good answer. I'm very curious to see these answers. Oh.
Dude, you hit me with a hard one.
I know you both love music, so.
I don't know the name of that. I think I'd have to go with like a Queen album.
Okay.
I think.
The greatest hits to get all of them.
Maybe there we go.
Okay,
Maybe
fair. That's a very fair answer.
I'll do that.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of things I could go with, but I feel like I'd have to go with something that like has a lot of variety on it,
Okay.
so you don't get bored.
I like that.
Under pressure.
Oh, I kind of like that. Varieties.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I think I'd go for something that I don't already love, but I know has been loved for a long time. And then I would get to spend that time like learning about it, like Rachmaninoff or something. Right?
Okay.
It's like, it's not what I'm gravitated towards in the slightest musically. It's not what I'm throwing on while I'm working or anything like that. But always there, always present in my mind are those like ancients and classics that like, you know, there's something to it. It's not just people liking old things because they're old. I think I would go for that so that I could spend my time on the island at least trying to understand why something is great that I didn't before.
Sam just took that to another level.
So fucking thoughtful.
Wow. I said, that's like, I don't even know what to do with that. It's like, he's like, I'm going to go to an island just to be an artist again.
He's like, I just
Right?
want to learn
He's
from
like,
the masters. Like, while I'm struggling to survive on
Yeah.
a deserted island,
I just
like,
want to be inspired.
I just want to think about something deeply that I
Deeply.
wouldn't be able to get to think deeply if I wasn't on an island.
Correct.
Like,
It's like, phew. I said Leonard Cohen.
you're a fucking legend.
Leonard Cohen is a great choice as well.
Yeah. I really just, that's always my choice.
You Want It Darker is one of my favorite songs.
Yeah. It's really one of my favorite songs also.
I'm shocked.
I'm not shocked, but I'm shocked. You're going to make me cry now. It really is one of my favorite songs.
Please do. I love it.
It's such a good song.
I want to eat it.
Yeah. You love it so much you want to eat it. Yeah. Leonard Cohen always just hit me.
He's a real one.
Yeah, exactly. As I said before, every time I listened to him, he just felt so real. And like, that's like probably what I love, and also my biggest fault is I just love realness so much.
It's hard
But-
to get it out of yourself, so when you see it
Yeah.
elsewhere,
It's
goes a long way.
yeah. Don't dissect me right now, please.
Not you, it's all of us. It's I'm talking about Guy over here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Before you dissect me more, just pick your songs.
Yeah.
I mean, I said this album
Oh, yeah.
called Adventure by Medion, and it's just an album that I go to when I don't have anything else in my mind and I just want to be happy. And if I'm on a desert island, I'm really neurotic and I'm going to go up and down a lot trying to survive. So like putting on something that I know will like calm me down, level me out. So I go.
Well, the good news is we're not on a deserted island because
Yet.
we have each other, and
Yet.
we have biscuits. So
Thank God.
That's like a day's worth of biscuits on the island.
we could make.
We could ration it, but
I don't know. I feel like Guy eats a lot. I could just see he's working out.
I ate the most. I don't think
Yeah.
I think I've eaten 4 so far.
I had
keep eating
3.
mini ones.
I'm gonna have another one before we leave for sure, and we're gonna bring them over to everybody else.
Yeah,
to
I
have
feel like a
some.
dumbass. Like we had them all in front of us. They should have been eaten too.
Yeah,
What the fuck happened?
but I mean, this one looks like a fish. Was that the point, or what
That was
happened?
the end
What
of
happened?
it. That was the end.
What?
So you mean you roll them out, you cut them out. That's like the leftover.
Yeah, it's
Ah,
crust.
okay. It's the leftover one.
Yeah, like how you,
I might eat that one. I don't like when
You
there's
should.
people who are left out.
you should eat
I'm
that
gonna
one.
eat that one.
But Sam, Guy, thank you guys for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you
for
really.
hanging out
This
with
was a
us.
great. This was just.
I just like that
vibe,
we get to
chill.
even be here doing this cameras regardless. This
Yeah.
is special.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
nice
this is Fungi's house. I don't know if you knew he sold his punk and bought it 2 days ago for Basel, Miami. So shout out to Fungi for
Great
giving
move.
great move, right?
Sold. Perfect.
Perfect time. Just but yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you guys. And
We're always the worst at wrapping these up. We
Yeah,
have,
I
like,
don't know how to do
no wrap up.
you know what? Let's
It's-
let. I feel like Sam could give us the words out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any words of wisdom?
What could you give us as we wrap this up?
I have a lot of love for each of you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you for contributing in a way that feels like it's not just passing the time, like you mean it underneath. That's like more precious than just about anything, to get to occupy the same reality and not just the same space.
I love that.
Thank you so much, man.
Love you
I
guys.
think that's a perfect way to end it. Cheers, guys.